Thank you so much for staying with us on the program. Now let's talk about the economy, just as Ini said before we took a break. Two gentlemen join us this morning to review what has happened in 2025 and also look forward. The issues that have affected the economy in 2025 that must be gotten right or better if things are supposed to improve. Dr. Muda Yusuf is an economist. He's here with us in the studio. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you very much for having me.
We also have Professor Wumi Ledare, who is an energy economist, also joining us virtually. Thank you for joining us, sir.
Good evening. Thank you for having me.
Let me begin, Dr. Yusuf, with the last conversation we just had. It's economy related.
It is.
And Jeffrey was very, very careful to begin the conversation earlier with the small and medium enterprises. They pretty much drive the economy. Now, are you as hopeful as Mr. Oyedele about the implementation and the expected results?
You see, what I would say is that, because I like what he said, during the interview, that it is better to focus on the few that will give you the largest yield. We call it Pareto principle. Focus on the few that will give you the largest returns. Now, we talk about SMEs. The SME space is almost 90% informal. You can't go to Kara market here and be talking to them about filing of returns, or about VAT, or about withholding tax. Neither can you go to Balogun market, or you go to Alaba,
or
Sabogeri in Kano. You are going to create a crisis. So we need to be very strategic in the implementation. Because, these people cannot relate to what we are talking about. Yes, Taiwo has said we have exempted this. These people are not even paying it in the first place. Have you gone to any markets where they give you a receipt and say that you are paying?
But they pay it informally. All those who come to collect money from
that's a different matter. He's talking about what is in the law now. Because in the conversation, it's about we have exempted them from withholding tax, from VAT, from company income tax. These people they can't relate to that. And they do huge businesses anyway. These are guys who sometimes import containers of goods and so on. Go to Balogun, go to Okeani, go to Aba Market, go to Onisha. How many of them can you be talking to about company income tax that they have now been exempted? Were they even paying it in the first place? Or you exempted them from VAT? So we need to understand the environment in which we are operating. Because every law, every legislation must relate to the peculiarity of the environment so that we don't create a crisis. 2026 is a pre-election year.
Yes, it is.
These things can be highly, very, very sensitive. Okay. That is why I'm saying that the implementation should concentrate first and foremost on the formal sector of the economy.
But Dr. Yusuf, eventually, don't we need to formalize in one way, capture this group?
It's not so easy. Formalize in this economy. This is a major peculiar. And I must tell you, the informal sector is the powerhouse of this economy. They generate close to 80% of the jobs. They don't keep accounts. They don't have audited accounts. So if you work to them now, what evidence are you now going to use to say that, okay, your turnover is 100 million, your turnover is 200 million? How are they communicate with how are they going to communicate with the tax person?
Anyway, there are other issues to take.
So we have to be very creative in dealing with this matter. That's just the point I'm making.
Yes, let me take the comment of Prof on that one as well. Because to a significant extent, Prof, it has a big impact on the economy. It's one of the big reforms, Prof, that is going to take effect in the year. And a good number of people are looking to how that is going to happen. So what is your take? What are the, should I say, slippery slopes or the landmines in the way of the execution of these tax laws that we must handle with care, Prof?
Thank you again for having me and compliment of this season. I must thank you again for inviting me because I really enjoyed the conversation. And sincerely speaking, I'm very, very happy that I stay on the show to listen to that chairman, Taiwo Oyedele. I'm so impressed with the conversation that he has. And I understand Dr. Yusuf's concern because of what I call this is Nigeria mentality. But I want to look at this tax law as an instrument for progress. It's a structure. And a nation must begin to learn to build structure. We've never lacked good structure in Nigeria. Implementing it is a challenge. And I can understand the complexity of what is being demanded. Even here in the United States, nobody wants to pay taxes. But that doesn't mean that we should not use that as an instrument. It could be a positive instrument in terms of fiscal policy control. And that's what we need to begin to build. We cannot just dismiss structure because we've done it even with our education. Let go of the structure that are in place. If you go back to Obafemi Awolowo, when he decided to spend 33% of his revenue on education, and you could see the difference 50, 60 years later, structure matters. And I really want to commend the taxman for an excellent job that he has done. But it's a complex system. And Nigeria is not fully developed to be able to comprehend the importance of what it's doing. Perhaps because of the diminishing educational advancement that we find ourselves in. But we should not, because of that, not put structure in place and begin to look at what works and what does not work. This is where ethics and fairness come in. Honestly, I commend the effort for this tax reform. Have a different thing that may be politically sensitive. It's a way of getting what we never had since oil became the dominant factor for the economy. What this tax bill is trying to do is to find a way to encourage the subnationals not to depend on hands-me down from the center, and making the people within their sub-region to be responsible in contributing to the developing of the sub-region. It requires a change in mindset. And that's where I'm going to look at this tax system. It's an economic restructuring that can have a lasting impact in the way Nigeria thinks in the future. And I look forward to observing the workability of it. It's not going to be easy, but it's worth trying. That's where professional ethics come into play.
All right, Prof. Okay.
Yeah, I would like to ask Prof. I mean, as was stated earlier, yes, we would love to dwell on the tax reform, but when you look at the economy generally, we've seen a declining inflation this year. We've had gains of the reforms, but we did not see much of the macroeconomic gains translating to micro. We still saw an increase in the number of the poor in the country and all of that. Where would you say we're missing it? Translating those macroeconomic positive data to micro so that we can focus on that as we head into 2026.
Yes, thank you. If you look at the CBN projections, they are doable. It is always very difficult to climb up from a valley. Nigeria got sunk deep into the valley during the last 8 years, specifically from 2010 to 2023. And that is what is still lingering on. What we need now is consistency in policy and for people to understand that it takes time to climb out of a valley. When I was growing up, when you are digging a well, there are also always levers beside the well that you are going to climb up. For the last 10 years, we went down without those levers that are supposed to bring us up. The subsidy removal might have created some pain, but the long run benefit we are going to see. And that's what you have seen. So basically, if we want to find the impact of the upswing, we are not there yet. We are still climbing up. Then the government must become accountable to the people. The professionals must be ethical, and they must also be fair. This is, to me, we are going to get the impact. It cannot be fast. I'm sure you know that the rate at things go down is faster than the rate at which things will come up. And that's what we're seeing. With the expectation of about 4.5% GDP growth, coupled with inflation of about 12.5% in 2026, and what they call a GDP debt ratio of about 35%, if we can sustain that, things will get better. I'm optimistic but cautious.
All right, Prof.
But this is where now, if I can quickly finish,
okay,
we have fairness and ethics coming. I don't understand why the price of petrol will go down and public transportation is not going down. I mean, those are structural deficiency that has boggled our mind, really, in the sense that ethics does not seem to be part of the language of majority of Nigerian traders, if I can use the word.
All right, Prof. Dr. Yusuf, I just want to follow up on that.
Yeah.
So a lot of Nigerians are optimistic that 2026 will give more gains of the reforms, and that perhaps we would see that translation from macro gains to micro gains. But there's also the fear that 2026 is the pre-election year, and our leaders may be distracted, and that can hamper the gains that we're expecting.
Well, if anything, I think the fact that 2026 is a pre-election year should even compel them to do more to be able to convince the voters that they need to vote for them. Because a major campaign conversation in 2026 will be the cost of living and the impact of the reforms on the citizens. So the government will have to struggle, and it's a very important struggle, to convince the citizens that this reform is benefiting them. At the level of some elitist conversation, I think you can see some improvement. You know, I mean, there's this talk about the stability of the exchange rate, the deceleration, GDP growth. All these indicators are looking good. And some of these things are cascading to level of investment, because investors' confidence is improving. Profitability in the investment environment is improving. Some prices are actually dropping. So we are beginning to see some benefits. So I think going forward, and it's a responsibility for both the federal and the states, because I keep saying this, when we have economic conversations on the economy, the tendency is to be looking at the center only. Many of these states now are now posting budgets of over ₦1 trillion. I mean, they have to also show something to the people.
So what do they bring? Because that's the question I was going to ask. Most of the time, just as you said, we talk about the federal government all the time.
Yes.
So what should the states be doing? And he asked a question about macroeconomic policies or policy gains, not translating into micro. Prof also emphasized it the other time that the price of stuff, you know, fuel may be reducing, but the cost of transportation isn't moving an inch. So what can the state governments do?
You see, there has to be specific intervention, because these are social issues. These are not problems you solve purely at the macroeconomic level. These are social specific intervention programs, like transportation, for instance. quite a number of states are doing something, but they can do more. Because one of the areas where the poor spend a lot of their money is on transportation. Some of them spend close to 30% of their total salary on transportation. Imagine they can step out and they can see a bus that is heavily subsidized, like these BRT buses. Imagine that they are heavily subsidized at just about 50% of what you can get from the commercial buses. You can imagine the impact. The same thing with education. We are now in a country where practically everybody is struggling to put their children in a private school. What happens to public schools? The subnationals have a big role to play so that the pressure of paying school fees on the parents will be less.
All right, Doctor, let's take it to Prof. I'm looking at the macroeconomic outlook of the central bank, as you listed. A lot of them in the north, apart from the debt to GDP, which will slightly increase, so that is slightly in the south. All these big numbers, they are quite impressive. Though I don't agree with one or two of those numbers, because reality has taught me to manage expectation. And as Dr. Yusuf has said, last year we saw over-ambition, even from the federal government, and it looks like the state government have taken caution. But where I'm going to with that question is, wastage and corruption is at the bane of our problem. Sometimes it's not really that we don't have money. It's that these monies are siphoned or misappropriated, or let's use the right word, stolen. How do we make sure that we manage our funds as much as possible so that it trickles down to the people? This argument about trickling down is because the people that are running the government, some of them, if you give them 100 naira, they will spend 20 naira on the people and still 80 naira. Now we're almost begging them, say, okay, you just take 30 naira and leave 70 for the people. We are getting to that point. It's literal. Prof.
Well, I understand, and you are very correct, my friend. This is where we need to begin to look differently to the type of leadership we have. What we have majorly in Nigeria, if I can be forgiven, we have too many transactionalism dominating our political system. And so we need to begin to think in terms of transformational leaders. And we do have some governors that are trying, and I think Dr. Yusuf said something that maybe the government needs to be thinking about. I won't call it subsidy, but I'll call it palliative spending that can benefit people. Having good education, good public school, it's not subsidy. It's more or less an incentive to keep more money in people's pocket by making sure they don't pay high school fees, which they are entitled to. We abandon that. So the government needs to begin to think in terms of even helping community build roles so that the movement of agricultural products to the market can be less expensive. And then there will be less damages to their products because they can get it to the market quickly. So those are ways in which government needs to be thinking. I think this idea of corruption, people using the word corruption as actually limit the negative implication of being corrupted. Call them thieves. You are stealing public money to live affluent life.
Well, it sounds like,
to some extent, I don't pay attention
it sounds
to so
like
many
you are in
people
agreement with the
that
president.
I see what they do.
It sounds like you are in agreement with the president with the naming sometimes, because the president has said, even if all you do is rob people, you are a terrorist. At least that's the way it sounds to me. Maybe that's not the way he's put it. But, you know, there are so many issues to raise on this matter. And as you know, and as Dr. Yusuf is aware, we will call you from time to time because we have questions to ask, and you have answers to give us. For now, we have to thank you very much for being a part of our program this morning. Professor Omin Ludari is an energy economist. We appreciate your time today, as well as Dr. Muda Yusuf. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Yusuf is always realistic. The realist himself.